I'm Tim Constantine from the Washington Times. When Joe Biden became president of the United States, one of the very first things he did was cancel the Keystone Pipeline. Then he canceled leases on federal lands for gas and oil drilling. And then he followed with more and more questionable energy policies. In fact, in short order, he took the United States from energy independence to Biden himself going to Saudi Arabia and begging them to open the spigot so that prices would go back down. You may recall the Crown Prince literally laughed. 2 days later, he said, we're not going to do that. In fact, he extended the period of time in which they would restrict oil and raise the prices even more. Biden's response, because it was coming up on election time, was to release the strategic petroleum reserves to try to bring the prices back down. It has been a mess. All of this is a prelude to the president wanting to push electric vehicles, EVs, in lieu of traditional gas-powered combustion engines. Here to talk about the government's role on pushing what products we should drive, what kind of cars we should have, from ForAmerica, it's David Bozell. David, how are you?
Good, Tim. How are you?
You know, the president has this vision that in short order we will all be driving electric cars.
Yeah.
What role should the government be playing in deciding what motor vehicles you and I drive?
Right. Well, anecdotally, let me start. When school started in September, we have the school bus that goes in front of our house, and it was electric, and it was great. You know why? Because it was quiet. Everyone knows a school bus. I mean, those things, diesel engines, and it was quiet. And I was like, wow, this is actually, maybe I might get behind this electric movement here. Quiet school buses. You know what I have not seen since the fall started and the temperatures went down? The electric school bus. They don't see it. I don't see it anymore. It's gone. Now we're all back to the diesel stuff, and I'm thinking, somebody is hiding this thing, or this thing does not work when the temperatures don't get above freezing. It's a religion for Joe Biden and the Democrats, climate is. The real kick in the shins that the Republicans are funding it. Through all these CRs that we discussed, they've done 3 of them now since attaining the majority. They've funded Joe Biden's climate religion activities. If it was such a great idea, Joe Manchin would not be retiring. He voted. He was it was the tie-breaking vote when it came to Joe Biden's climate bill, dubbed as the Inflation Reduction Act, but it parked all sorts of climate initiatives inside that bill. Joe Biden was the tie-breaking vote, and now he knows he's going to suffer the political consequences, and West Virginia is going to throw him out.
There's no infrastructure in place.
No.
If you have an electric car and you want to drive from here in Washington to Maine, good luck.
Right.
You got to map it out in advance and try to figure out where those charging stations might be. Not only is there no infrastructure in place, but despite the fact the Biden administration is trying to mandate that a majority of cars within 5 model years will be electric, there's no movement by private industry to do that. So the government, you point this out through these continuing resolutions, is saying, well, we will fund all these charging stations. We will fund the infrastructure to the tune of tens of billions of taxpayer dollars. Your money, my money. And then for that honor, you and I will also get to pay at the chargers that we already paid for.
Right.
Why are the Republicans going along with this?
Well, they can't seem to agree on anything when it comes to what they want their agenda to be in this majority. And when you're going to go the continuing resolution route, well, you're going to have to give the Democrats what they want, which is and climate is their religion, and so you're going to have to fund it. If you're afraid of a shutdown, this is what you're going to get. But not only is it just charging stations for private vehicle owners like ourselves, how about the tractor-trailer industry? There's no superconductors to charge these mega trucks.
Time is money. Time is money. How are these trucks going to stop, recharge for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? I don't know. But they're just going to recharge, and then they'll drive another. The mileage is so limited. The technology is not where it needs to be. I'm reminded.
500 miles is the limit for a charge. Well, if you're a tractor trailer going across country, I mean that's start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. wait a couple hours. Where, I don't know. So it's, yes, this is it's going to take decades for them to want to do it. But I just understand, we're paying for it, and we're trying to uproot a system has made the United States the economic engine of the world. We're just funding our own demise unnecessarily.
When I was a kid, I entered second grade in 1972.
Yeah.
And in 1972, they promised us as second graders that solar energy was this close. We were going to power the entire world by the sun. Oh my gosh, it was exciting. And I remember as a 7-year-old thinking, oh, that's great news.
Right.
Except here we are 50 years later, and solar still really hasn't been perfected. They're popping panels up in places, but it doesn't work from a standpoint of replacing all energy everywhere. The promise has not been kept.
Right.
I feel like we're walking down that same road, except on a much tighter timeline with the EVs. We've been promised all kinds of things. You mentioned that in really cold weather, those buses aren't running now. If you go to the state of Maine or the state of Minnesota in January, a car that might hold a 200-mile or 250-mile charge now is only getting 80 or 90 miles to a charge.
Right.
So you're charging for an hour and a half to drive for an hour or an hour and a half.
What if you live in a hurricane zone? What if you got to get out of town?
Right.
You know, on a drop of a dime. You're going to sit there and wait and get your vehicle charged?
Are we being forced an inferior technology?
Inferior technology, more expensive technology, life-threatening technology. Again, if you need to get out of a location quickly, you're not going to be able to do it with this idea of everything being electrified. You're just not going to be able to do it. And it just makes sense, right? If you need your phone, well, I got to charge it before I leave the house, right? You're stuck. Right. You're stuck at the house. So I think it's dangerous. I think it's too expensive. Oh, by the way, we can't afford it. Oh, by the way, the country didn't ask for it. Every poll will show that climate change or electric, EVs is at single digits. I mean, the 2020 election, if I'm not mistaken, climate
Meaning
change,
it's not a priority for 90% of America or more.
99. I mean, it was the top priority for 1% of the country.
Right.
1%. And we're spending tens of billions of dollars to appease 1% of the country. Democrats are suffering politically because of it.
You mentioned more expensive, and the Texas Public Policy Foundation just came out with a study this week doing an analysis of the cost of running an EV, and they matched it up. If you are filling gas up, how much do you get per gallon? How much does it cost you per mile? And so on. And the equivalent in electric, by the time you have charged and all the associated expenses of running an electric vehicle, is $17 a gallon.
Really?
And so it's not only is it not cheaper, it is
what a deal.
Gas was $1.89 a gallon the day Joe Biden was elected, so it's 8 times higher.
Democrats have this sort of unhealthy obsession with keeping people in place. And maybe that's the end goal, right? Is to keep people stagnant, in place, not just geographically, but economically, not being able to rise up the social ladder. You can just sort of stay in what they define a middle class is, and you just stay there. And me, the Democrat, will handle all the rest, and because it's good for you, and give you a nice pat on the shoulder and say thank you very much for your vote. People got to wake up. They're taking our money. They're Republicans. They're guilty as charged too, because they can't seem to get their acts together and end this stuff. But they have the power of the purse. This is what they were elected to do, to stop this, and they haven't. So a pox on both of everybody's houses. But I keep going back to the Manchin thing, Tim, because I think it's politically important. Here's a guy that people think, he should run for president. He's in the middle. He's stuck his neck out for EVs at his own, despite the fact that his state was the driving force of coal, and his state has rewarded him with basically telling him, you'll never work another day at an elected office ever again. And so West Virginia has the power to do it and the industry to do it, but it's also, that's reflected nationwide, I think.
We're told by the Democrats and by those who support EVs that it's environmentally friendly. It's better than using fossil fuels. And yet, when we look at EVs and what it requires to make those batteries, there are a number of rare earth minerals, nickel and cadmium and all these other types of things that must be mined and brought forward. The state of Maine, for example, has passed a law at the state level that encourages, forces a certain number of EV sales by a certain year. They are forcing their citizens to have EVs. This is a state that comes in 49th out of 50 states in sunshine every year. It's a cold place. This is going to be interesting to watch electrical vehicles in use in Maine. But at the same time, there is a mine with proven reserves of some of these rare earth minerals in Maine.
Wow.
That would be, if it were licensed, would be the largest of its kind on planet Earth. But the state of Maine has said, we don't want that because we don't think it's good for the environment. And I'm thinking, on one hand, EVs are supposed to be better for the environment, but you won't allow in your own state to mine for the very things necessary to create those EVs because it's bad for the environment. Which is it?
So they have to go to China at triple the cost to get the materials, right? Or South America or West Africa. I mean, they're going to all these faraway places where there are no regulations of such kinds. And we're all having to pay triple, quadruple the cost. The inconsistency is out of this world. And this is where the Republicans, they need to drive the wedge between the Democrats. What do you want, guys? Do you want electrified vehicles, or do you want do you want to use resources? I mean, it could be, it's an American resource on American lands. It could be serving to produce American jobs. That's, some would call that our Bill of Rights, the economic Bill of Rights. We should have access to those things if it's going to make our lives better and we're going to conserve part of the environment. But if the left won't allow it, and what is this economic engine that we're trying to install into the country, that we just have to go to China and other communist countries to electrify ourselves? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Final question. You mentioned how poll after poll shows this really isn't a priority for most Americans. They don't want an EV. Climate change is not even in their top 5 for most people. And yet Joe Biden keeps pushing forward. Are we on the road to our own economic destruction? And I mean that literally.
I mean, Maine, you said Maine, that'll be the best example yet, right? I mean, if they electrify at a cost that's obscene and they can't make their economy work, that'll be the big test. I don't think that this country could operate electrified, given our interstate needs, our interstate travel needs, particularly with tractor trailers and everything. I don't think it works. But I think the left isn't really concerned about, they're not concerned about inflation. They're not really concerned about economic performance because it's a religion. So, and they'll try to spin it and say, well, we've created a job to build a charger. Okay, well, I mean, that's just not good economic performance. So yes, I think we could be on a road to economic ruin.
For America, he is David Bozell. My name is Tim Constantine from the Washington Times. Thank you.